This is a Rutke Mods video. Hello, I'm Greg Rutke of Rutke Mods, and welcome to episode 3, the final episode of my Parts PC build. In this episode, I will be covering what happened to this system and how I fixed it. Also, I will be covering everything now that it is completely finished. So we'll go across everything, and we'll start off with what I've done to make this sucker work. If you have noticed, there is one major difference on the front end now. If we look down here, there is a toggle switch. I'll explain what this toggle switch is for in a second. We've updated the stickers to show what's on the inside. We moved the disk drive some so I could put the new Wi-Fi antenna up in here, because it's actually designed to go behind the drive bay cover, which is kind of stupid since a lot of cases now don't even have drive bays. But when this Wi-Fi adapter was made, it was still semi-common to have drive bays, which was around 2012. Still, the Wi-Fi adapter I got from my main rig's motherboard setup. I didn't use that Wi-Fi adapter. I actually used an AC adapter because I like those better, and it's a lot better and had the 5 gigahertz band. So I gave her this so she doesn't have to keep running an Ethernet cable across her floor to get it to connect to the internet. So I'll briefly explain what happened to this system. The power supplies that I tried in it had one major flaw, which I still haven't quite figured out why it didn't work. The major flaw was when anything was plugged into it, especially USBs, anything, even the Wi-Fi adapter I had in it, the system wouldn't turn on unless everything was disconnected and then reconnected. That involved me taking the side panel off, disconnecting the Wi-Fi, waiting for this really annoying buzzing to stop from the power supply adapter, and making sure that the board LED was completely solid with no flickering. This system, anytime you shut it off, the board would flicker and the adapter would hiss. Now, the adapter will occasionally still hiss, but there's a way that I fixed this. Now, before I show you what's going on the inside now, we'll explain what I did. Apparently the older power supply, the original one, which has some pretty bad coil whine, actually works great in this system now that it's built up. It's way too much wattage. She'll never use this much wattage, but I don't have much of a choice because I want to give her back a working computer. This power supply has been used a lot, but I have a feeling it may continue to work in the future, I hope. If not, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Now, it's been a while since I updated this video, and it's all because I had some issues with the video card. EVGA, even though I didn't technically have a warranty, was very gracious and replaced it for me, and in fact it came in today. This computer's going out tomorrow back to my mother, so it was very lucky that the video card came in today. Anyway, so let's go over how I fixed this. The power issue was hypothesized to be the 5-volt connection to the board. Anytime the system was shut off, the 5-volt would be starved. Now, there's only one way that I found worked to fix it. This power supply apparently has a stronger 5-volt connection to it than a newer power supply does. And even though this still has a hissing problem and it won't power on sometimes, the best way to fix it is the back power switch on the power supply. When you flip that, the system, of course, drains itself out and then completely is dead. When you flip it back on, it sends a surge through the 5-volt that basically resets everything, and you can start it back up. Now, the way my mother has this set up in her setup is it's always on the floor, up behind towards the back of the desk where you can't reach the power supply switch. Now, since this is a really old power supply and I do a lot of work on power supplies, which, warning, I wouldn't recommend ever doing work on power supplies because it can be very deadly if you don't know what you're doing. I decided to get into it and see if I could wire a switch in to it that worked just like the back switch did. And that's what I did. Now, if you remember in episode 2, I explained to you how this case has no wire management whatsoever. Well, the power supply has no way to run the wires other than what I did, which you'll see in a second. So, we've covered all the major issues. There's one other issue that I didn't know about until I finally fixed the system. That major issue is not actually that major, but it's got to do with the sound. If you still have the speakers on when you shut the system off, you'll hear this mildly loud pop in the speakers. I figure that's the 5-volt rail when it goes and gets starved. The way I fixed that was with an internal sound card, a PCI card. This board still had 32-bit PCI slots in it. And the card I used was one of my favorite sound cards ever made, at the time anyway. Until recently, I still used a sound card similar to this. Now, what I originally wanted to do for my mother was buy her a Sound Blaster XFi card from around 2007 era. In fact, they were still using XFi cards in HP workstations, just like this board right here, until probably 2012-ish. This board is from, of course, around 2011, maybe early 2012. I could have bought her an XFi card. They're extremely cheap. An OEM card would have been plenty, but I decided to use my old sound card, a Sound Blaster Odyssey 2. This is a sound card that was designed circa 2002. So right now it is a sound card that's about to be 15 years old in design, but it still works great. It's got 6.1 surround in it, and it's still just as good, if not a lot better than the onboard sound that's in this. The only drawback was we had to use some mildly outdated Windows 7 drivers because that's the newest. Windows 10 doesn't even carry the drivers anymore for this, so I had to rig that up. Also, for some reason, the microphone feedback doesn't seem to work on the card, but the built-in sound on this still has a microphone. And I wanted to use a microphone so my mother could use Cortana. So the way I have this Frankenstein together in the software is the sound comes out the dedicated PCI card and the microphone comes out of the built-in sound. Anyway, so enough of my jabbering, and let's go inside and see what I did to it. Now, as you can see, it's not quite as pretty on the inside as it used to be, but it still works and it still doesn't look that awful. Plus, there's still good airflow circulation. Airflow is not super important in this case because there's no front fan in it currently, but still it helps with the air circulation not to have all those wires around and whatnot. Now, as you can see here, the power supply's wires had to be snaked through here and into the back where that one hole opening was to try to tidy it up as best as possible. So what I did all here is, if you look right here, there is this black and red wire. This is the main power line right here. It goes straight from the neutral line from the AC back here and feeds through here and then goes to the front where the switch is. And when you flip the switch, it breaks the circuit and all the power leaves the system. So that's how I fixed that. When you flip the front switch, it's like flipping the back switch, which is still working great. And I located the switch where I located it so my mother can just flip the switch on or off and press the power button. And it works great. I haven't had any issues. And the worst thing that happens is when you flip the switch, sometimes it won't start still. But if you give it a few seconds, it will eventually start up. it must be the board loading the 5 volt. Sometimes it works instantly and sometimes it takes a second, but always starts when you flip the switch. It sometimes doesn't when it shuts off in shutdown mode in Windows. So, that's a minor compromise, but it starts every time now and works great. So we'll look really close inside and you'll see all the wires snaking down through here. Everything is as tight as possible, but still not horribly bad looking. I also tried my best to manage everything as best as I could. From here we have the 750 Ti, the USB 3.0 card, because this board didn't come with 3.0 even though it was available then. And that was one of the major complaints that this board had when it came out in that workstation. In fact, HP sold a adapter card similar to this that allowed you to have USB 3, but the complaint was it took up a slot and it was way overpriced. HP said the only USB 3 cards they sold would work. That's a lie, because this works fine, and this was much cheaper. Then we have a OEM hoppage tuner card. My mother still likes having a multimedia setup, and so we have this. This actually came from another HP computer I had. It works totally great. It's a good card. It has all the digital things, and it just works good. And then on the bottom we have the antique Odyssey 2. This was actually from 2004. It came from one of my old Gateway computers, which I still have, in fact. It's still a good computer, but I upgraded the sound in it. Anyway, so other than that, nothing's really changed. A whole lot anyway. So before we finish up this part of the video, I'll show you the back real quick just for the heck of it so you can see a little bit of the difference. We still have the cardboard I/O shield. Here's the old power supply, and if you look inside you can see the wire that I put into it right here. Everything has been sleeved. There's shrink tubing on all the solder joints, and it feeds into the line right here and comes out and feeds through the front. It's very clean and sort of almost looks factory if you look at it from the back. The I/O shield. The video card, which is actually a revision of the 750 Ti. They gave me the newest one available, and I went from a 2014 model, according to the serial number, to a 2016 refurb model, which is the newest revision possible. So that's a plus too. And it looks a lot better. The old 14 version, this was painted matte black and scratched very easily. The card I had was scratched really bad. It didn't look good, but I didn't care because it was cheap and it was in the back of the computer. But it's nice to have this black chrome on here. It looks a lot better. Then we have the USB 3 card, the tuner card, and the sound card. So that's all that has changed in the back. Now I'll quickly show you what it does when you boot it up now. Before we continue, I forgot to mention that I fixed the no front USB port connected error, which requires you to press F1 before it will boot. Now, the proprietary front USB connector is a normal front USB connector with some extra pins in it, which won't allow you to connect a normal connector into it without it giving out an error. Now, the connector will still work fine, but you'll still have that error every time it boots. There's apparently one quick fix for it, though. You have to ground out a set of the pins with a jumper, which took me forever to figure out how to do it. There was tutorials online how to fix the problem. The thing is, they were all from different HP workstations with different header types in them. So I finally figured out what pins did what, And this is actually an IDE hard drive jumper that I stuck onto the pins right there to fix the boot problem. Now, I still have the front USB connected. This board actually has 2 extra USB 2 connectors, which are normal ones. So now I have the front USB connected. I believe it's right here. And this right here is the Wi-Fi adapter. So I still have no problems, and I don't have to worry about using the actual front USB connector because the other ones actually work the same. And so the front USB connector is just plugged into one of the internal versions of the connector. They're marked internal. They're just a normal USB header. So that's how I fixed that boot problem. So now let's turn it on now that it's all hooked up. And to show you, I have the microphone plugged into there and the sound plugged into there. Just to show you when we test out Cortana, because I just want to show you guys how that works. So when I flip this switch right here, the system will get its boot power available, and then you can press the power button and it should start up with no problems. I'll flip the switch and we'll see the fans kick on real quick. So let's flip the switch, and if you look over here, you'll see what happens. We'll flip it, and then everything kicks on. We wait a second. There we go. Now that was one of those times when it didn't want to just power on instantly. Now if we hit the power button, it will power on. And I can also show you that this really is plugged straight into the board, the power supply. Alright, there's the boot up post screen. Now if I flip it, we'll see it just shut off. Now of course you're not supposed to do that. But that's just to show you that it literally is plugged straight into the main power on the power supply. So we'll do it again. Once the board's powered down, we'll flip the switch, and it starts right up. So that's how I fixed that. And now we'll boot it up. There's the post screen. It starts booting into Windows. There's a picture of my mother. Hi, Mom. And we're all set. And before we finish up everything, let's say hi to Cortana. Hi, Siri.
Surely you're not serious.
Anyway. So that's the parts PC. The whole system is now set up and working perfectly. Even the case fan is running. We're all set, and the only thing you have to do to shut it off is, of course, shut it off. We'll go to shutdown. I have Start 10 installed here. So we'll go to shutdown. It will shut down. The second the blue light kicks off on the front, we just flip the power switch and all the power gets cut off to the board. Now every time she wants to start it, she just has to flip the switch again, wait a few seconds, and press the power button. It will start up every time. So anyway, that is the end of this episode and this series. I have decided to start up a PC build series that will be kind of a spotty series because I can't afford to build PCs a whole lot yet. But that's also where this under $1,000 PC that I'm also making video series of, which is two episodes long. I'm going to put that into this series too. And so even though these are technically separate series, they'll all be in the same playlist to be easy to find. Anyway, so once again, that is the end of this episode. And thank you for watching. This has been a Rutke Mods video.